The war room of the starship Infinite Doctrine was always loud. 19 commanders from 19 different species argued about everything. They argued about supply lines. They argued about attack plans. They argued about which planet to save and which planet to sacrifice. The arguments never stopped. Commander had served in the Galactic Coalition for 200 years. His skin was pale blue and covered in tiny scales that changed color with his mood. Right now, they were dark purple with frustration. The general was demanding more ships. The Silurian admiral wanted to retreat. The representative sat in the corner, calculating odds of survival on his personal computer. Nobody could agree on anything. This was normal. Then the door opened, and everything changed. The woman who walked in was small. She stood about 5 feet and 6 inches tall, with dark hair pulled back in a tight knot. Her skin was brown, her eyes were dark, and she wore the standard coalition uniform. She looked ordinary. She looked harmless. But every commander in the room went silent. Felt his scales turn white with fear. He could not help it. He had read this woman's file. He knew where she came from. Her name was, she was a lieutenant in the coalition military, and she was a human. The word hung in the air like poison. Human. A species from a world called Earth, a world that the coalition had classified as Category 12. Category 12 meant a planet so dangerous that no sane species should be able to survive there. Earth had crushing gravity, nearly 3 times stronger than the coalition standard. Earth had extreme temperatures, from burning deserts to frozen wastelands. Earth had violent weather systems that could destroy cities. Earth had millions of species of predators, parasites, and diseases that spent every moment trying to kill everything around them. And somehow, humans had not only survived on this nightmare planet, they had become its dominant species. Looked around the room. Her eyes moved quickly, studying each commander for less than a second. Recognized the movement. She was identifying threats. She was planning escape routes. She was doing this automatically, without thinking about it, because that was what creatures did. She saluted. Her hand was steady. "Lieutenant reporting for duty, sirs." Nobody responded. The general's mouthparts had frozen mid-click. The Silurian admiral's skin had gone completely transparent with shock. Even the, who prided themselves on showing no emotion, had stopped typing. Forced himself to speak. Someone had to speak. The silence was becoming dangerous. "Welcome, Lieutenant. We were discussing the offensive." "I read the briefing materials," said. She had not been invited to sit down. She remained standing. Her posture was relaxed, but noticed that her weight was balanced on both feet, ready to move, ready to fight. She continued speaking. "You are planning to send 4 carrier groups in a direct attack on a fortified position. The enemy has artillery guns on the high ground. Your estimated casualties are 62% of the attacking force." The general recovered enough to respond. His voice was sharp with offense. "The attack is necessary. The system controls the entire sector. We must take it, whatever the cost." "I was not finished, sir." The general stopped talking. His mouthparts clicked once, then went silent. In 300 years of military service, no junior officer had ever interrupted him. No junior officer had ever dared to interrupt him. The general could crush most species with one hand. He had killed enemies in close combat. He had torn through enemy lines like a machine of death. But something in his eyes made him hesitate. She kept talking as if nothing unusual had happened. The briefing materials included geological surveys of 4. The northern continent has large cave systems. The rock is unstable. One small team with demolition equipment could enter through the caves. They could plant explosives at key points. The explosions would trigger a collapse. The enemy artillery would be buried under 400 meters of rock. The room remained silent. Estimated casualties for this plan, finished, less than 2%. Permission to sit down, sirs. Nobody gave permission. but nobody objected when she pulled out a chair and sat down. Felt his scales shifting through colors he could not control, fear, surprise, and something else, something he had not felt in a very long time. Hope. The coalition had been losing this war for 50 years. The hegemony was stronger, more advanced, more ruthless. They did not want to conquer the galaxy. They wanted to burn it clean. They moved from system to system, destroying everything, killing everyone, leaving nothing but ash and silence. The coalition had been running out of options. They had been running out of time. And now, a single human woman had walked into their war room and solved a problem that had consumed them for weeks. She had done it in less than a minute. She had done it while standing at attention, waiting for permission to sit. The Silurian admiral finally spoke. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. How did we not see this option? You were looking at the enemy, said. Her voice was calm, patient, almost kind. You were not looking at the ground beneath them. The general leaned forward. His massive body creaked as his exoskeleton shifted. You would lead this mission yourself, Lieutenant. Yes, sir. Into enemy territory, through unstable caves, with a small team and no backup. Yes, sir. You understand that you will probably die. Smiled. It was a small smile, just a slight curve of her lips, but something about it made scales turn cold. With respect, General, she said, I grew up on a planet where everything was trying to kill me. The gravity wanted to crush me. The weather wanted to freeze me or burn me. The animals wanted to eat me. The bacteria wanted to rot me from the inside. She paused. I am still here. The things that tried to kill me are not. The general sat back. His mouth parts clicked rapidly, a sign of deep distress. Looked around the room. He saw commanders who had faced death 1,000 times. He saw warriors and strategists and survivors, and all of them were looking at this small human woman with the same expression. They were afraid of her. But more importantly, they were starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could help them win. The meeting continued. Plans were made. Arguments resumed, though they were quieter now, more careful. And through it all, Lieutenant sat in her chair, watching, listening, learning. She was the first human ever assigned to the Coalition High Command. She would not be the last. 3 weeks passed on the Infinite Doctrine, learned the ship. She memorized every corridor, every room, every escape route. She met the crew. She studied their faces, their habits, their fears. And they studied her. The other officers called her the when they thought she could not hear. They watched her in the corridors. They watched her in the dining hall. They watched her in the training rooms. They moved aside when she walked past them, pressing themselves against the walls as if she were a wild animal that might attack at any moment. Notice this, she did not comment on it. The food was the first thing that disturbed them. Humans ate meat. This was not unusual in the galaxy. Many species ate meat, but humans ate it in ways that horrified the Coalition crew. One evening, sat in the dining hall with a plate of protein strips. The synthesizers on the ship could not perfectly copy Earth food, but they came close. The strips were red and wet. They were not quite raw, but they were not fully cooked either. A Silurian officer sat across from her. His name was, and he was a tactical analyst. His body was thin and fragile, covered in soft scales that changed color with his emotions. His species ate nothing but sunlight. The idea of consuming another creature made him feel sick. But he was curious about the human. Everyone was curious about the human. He watched bite into the meat. Red juice ran down her chin. She wiped it away with the back of her hand and kept eating. Does it taste good? Asked. Looked up, she chewed slowly, swallowed, then shrugged. It tastes like food, not like home, but close enough. What does home food taste like? Was quiet for a moment. Her eyes became distant, looking at something far away. Better, she said finally, fresher. On Earth, we have animals that we raise for food. We have plants that grow in the ground. We have salt from the oceans and spices from the forests. She smiled slightly. Everything tastes like the planet it comes from. Earth food tastes like struggle, like survival. Did not understand what she meant, but he nodded anyway. The second thing that disturbed them was her sleep schedule. Humans slept only 6 hours per day. The required 14 hours of deep sleep to function. The Silurians needed 10 hours of rest in direct light. Even the, who were the hardiest warriors in the coalition, needed 9 hours of sleep. 6 hours seemed impossible. 6 hours seemed inhuman. Explained it once to a group of officers who had gathered the courage to ask. On Earth, she said, sleeping was dangerous. Predators hunted at night. Enemies attacked when you were weak. So we learned to sleep fast, sleep deep, get what we needed and wake up ready to fight. But your brain, one officer protested. Your body, how do they recover? They recover enough, said. Humans are good at recovering. We heal fast. We adapt fast. We do not need perfect conditions to survive. We just need conditions that are not quite bad enough to kill us. The third thing that disturbed them was the way she moved. The infinite doctrine operated at standard coalition gravity, about 40% of Earth normal. For this meant she was walking on a world with less than half the weight she had grown up with. She felt light. She felt free. She felt like she could fly. And when she moved, the other officers saw it. She walked differently than they did. Her steps were longer, smoother, more controlled. When she turned a corner, her body shifted with a fluid grace that seemed almost unnatural. When she climbed ladders or stairs, she moved so fast that she seemed to blur. One morning, found her in the ship's exercise room. He had come to ask her about battle strategies for the mission. He stopped in the doorway and stared. Was lifting weights. This was not unusual. Many species exercised to maintain their strength. But the weights she was lifting were designed for soldiers. Each one was heavier than his entire body. She lifted them easily. She lifted them repeatedly. And she was not even breathing hard. Scales turned pale with shock. Lieutenant. Set the weights down and looked at him. Sweat covered her skin, but her breathing was calm. Good morning, Lieutenant Commander. Do you need something? I came to discuss the mission, but he paused. How are you doing that? Doing what? The weights they are meant for. Looked at the weights as if she had forgotten they were there. Oh, these are lighter than what I use at home. On Earth, everything is heavier. My body is designed for heavier. Here, I have to compensate. Walked closer. His scientific curiosity was overcoming his fear. Your bones must be incredibly dense. They are. Your muscles must be extremely powerful. They are. How did your species evolve this way? Picked up a towel and wiped her face. Because we had to. Earth wanted to crush us, so we became strong enough to push back. Every generation, the weak died and the strong survived. After millions of years, this is what was left. She gestured at her body. A creature built to survive things that should not be survivable. Felt a chill run through his body. His scales turned dark blue with a mixture of awe and terror. You are the galaxy's perfect predator, he whispered. Shook her head. No, we are the galaxy's perfect survivors. There is a difference. She paused, then added, predators hunt to kill, survivors kill to protect. We protect ourselves. We protect each other. We protect anyone who stands with us. She looked directly into his eyes. Her gaze was steady and calm. That is why I am here, Lieutenant Commander. Not to hunt, not to conquer, but to protect. The Coalition gave my people a chance when no one else would. They offered us friendship when they could have offered us fear. So we will stand with you. We will fight with you. We will die with you if that is what it takes. Did not know what to say. He had spent his entire life believing that strength came from intelligence, from technology, from careful planning. He had never considered that strength could come from simply refusing to die. The mission, he said finally, when do we leave? Tomorrow, replied. The team is ready, the explosives are prepared, all we need now is luck. Do humans believe in luck? Smiled. It was the first real smile had seen from her. It transformed her face, making her look younger, softer, almost gentle. We believe in making our own luck, she said, and we believe in fighting until the fight is over. Sometimes that is the same thing. She walked past him toward the door. At the threshold, she paused and looked back. Get some rest, Lieutenant Commander. Tomorrow is going to be interesting. Then she was gone, her footsteps silent on the metal floor. Stood alone in the exercise room for a long time. He thought about gravity. He thought about survival. He thought about what it meant to come from a world that tried to kill you every single day. And for the first time since the war began, he thought that maybe the coalition had a chance. The landed hard on 4, felt the impact through her boots and smiled. It felt like home. Her team climbed out into the darkness. There were 12 of them, 11 coalition specialists and 1 human. The specialists were the best in their fields, warriors for protection, Silurian engineers for the explosives, a navigator who had memorized every tunnel in the cave system. And the leader. The cave entrance was 2 kilometers away. They moved in silence, their boots crunching on the rocky ground. The sky above them was black, filled with unfamiliar stars. The air was thin and cold. Felt alive. On Earth, she had grown up in a place called the Andes Mountains. The air there was thin too. The nights were cold. She had learned to walk quietly, to breathe slowly, to move without leaving traces. Her mother had taught her these things. Her grandmother had taught her mother. Knowledge passed down through generations of survivors. The cave entrance appeared out of the darkness. It was a black mouth in the side of a cliff, surrounded by jagged rocks. The navigator, unnamed, checked his equipment. The tunnel system extends 15 kilometers into the mountain, he said. His voice was soft, almost mechanical. The unstable zone is near the center. We must plant the explosives at 6 key points to trigger the collapse. Time estimate, asked. 4 hours to reach the center, 1 hour to plant the explosives, 4 hours to return. We should be finished before the sun rises. Nodded, let us begin. They entered the cave. The darkness was absolute. Their lights created small circles of visibility in an endless ocean of black. The walls pressed close on either side. The ceiling hung low overhead. Every step echoed in the silence. Loved it. Humans had evolved in caves. Millions of years ago, her ancestors had hidden in places like this, sheltering from the dangers of the world outside. The darkness felt safe to her. The close walls felt protective. She was in her element. The team moved deeper. The tunnel twisted and turned, climbing and falling, branching into countless paths. Guided them with quiet confidence, his internal map never failing. They had traveled maybe 3 kilometers when everything went wrong. The flash came first, a brilliant burst of light that blinded everyone for a critical second. Then came the sound, a high-pitched whine that turned into a roar. Then came the fire. Plasma bolts tore through the tunnel from hidden turrets in the walls. The hegemony had known they were coming. The hegemony had prepared. 2 went down in the first second. Their armor, designed to stop most weapons, melted under the concentrated fire. A Silurian screamed as a bolt caught her shoulder, spinning her into the wall. The team scattered, pressing against the rocks, trying to find cover in a tunnel that offered none. Did not scatter, did not hide. She ran forward. Later, the survivors would talk about what happened next. They would describe it in different ways. Some said she moved like water, flowing around the plasma bolts as if she could see them coming. Some said she moved like fire, a blur of destruction that could not be stopped. Some said she moved like death itself. The truth was simpler, moved like a human. She crossed the kill zone in 3 seconds. Her brain processed information faster than conscious thought. Her body responded to threats before she knew they existed. Millions of years of evolution had built her for moments like this. Every ancestor who had survived a predator attack, every human who had escaped death by a fraction of a second, every generation that had refused to die, they all lived in her muscles, her nerves, her blood. The first turret exploded as her breaching charge found its power core. She threw the charge without stopping, without aiming, trusting her instincts to guide her hand. The second turret tracked her movement. Its barrel swung toward her, calculating her trajectory, preparing to fire. She did not give it the chance. Her hands found the gun barrel and pulled. Metal screamed. The turret tore free from its mount, threw it aside, and kept moving. The third turret fired. This time she was not fast enough. She raised her tactical shield. The shield was designed to stop 3 or 4 plasma bolts before failing. The concentrated fire from the turret was too much. The shield shattered in her grip. The heat washed over her arm, cooking the flesh from wrist to elbow. Pain exploded through her body. Her brain screamed at her to stop, to retreat, to save herself. She ignored it. Her other hand found another breaching charge. She threw it. The turret exploded. The tunnel went dark. Silence fell. The only sound was breathing, heavy but controlled. She turned to face her team. Her arm hung at her side. The burned flesh was already beginning to blister. White bone showed through the blackened skin in places. "Is in my pack," she said. Her voice was calm, almost casual. "Someone patch this while I set the explosives." The Silurian medic, Osh, approached her with shaking hands. His skin had gone completely transparent with shock. "Lieutenant, your arm. It will heal. This level of damage, the tissue destruction." "I said it will heal." His voice was patient, not angry, almost kind. "Humans are good at healing. Our cells repair themselves quickly. In a few weeks this will be a scar. In a few months the scar will fade. We are built to survive damage that would kill other species." She pulled the demolition charges from her pack with her good hand. "Keep up. We still have a mission to complete." She walked past her team, deeper into the darkness. Behind her, the coalition soldiers exchanged looks. The sergeant, a massive warrior named, spoke first. "She is insane." "No," Osh said quietly. He watched shape disappear into the black. "She is human. I am beginning to understand that these are not the same thing." They followed her. What else could they do? The next 4 hours were a blur of movement and work. They reached the unstable zone. They planted the explosives at each key point. They began the long journey back. Worked with one arm. She never complained. She never slowed down. When a rock fell and blocked their path, she moved it with her good hand. When a team member stumbled, she helped them up. When fear began to spread through the group, she spoke to them quietly, calmly, reminding them that they were almost done. They reached the cave entrance as the first light of dawn touched the sky. Looked at her team. 11 faces looked back at her. Some were wounded, all were exhausted, but all were alive. She pulled the detonator from her pack. "Cover your ears," she said. The mountain shook. Deep underground, 6 explosions triggered a chain reaction. Millions of tons of rock shifted, cracked, fell. The hegemony artillery emplacements, the fortified positions, the soldiers who had been so confident in their defenses, all of it was buried under 400 meters of stone. Watched the dust rise from the mountain. Her burned arm throbbed with pain. Her body ached with exhaustion, but she was smiling. "Mission complete," she said. "Let us go home." They carried them back to the infinite doctrine. In the medical bay, doctors worked on his arm for 6 hours. They were amazed by what they found. Already, her cells had begun the healing process. New tissue was growing over the burned areas. Her immune system was fighting infection with brutal efficiency. One doctor, a Silurian specialist, studied her blood under a microscope. He looked at the sample for a long time. Then he looked at, lying on the medical bed, already half asleep. "How are you alive?" he whispered. Opened one eye. "Practice," she said. Then she closed her eye and went asleep. She slept for 6 hours exactly. Then she woke up and asked for a mission briefing. The war would not fight itself. The operation was a complete success. The enemy artillery was destroyed. The fortified positions were gone. Coalition forces moved in and took the system with almost no resistance. Total coalition casualties: 11 wounded, 0 killed. Total enemy casualties: 14,000. The numbers spread through the fleet like fire. Officers whispered about the human who had run through plasma fire. Soldiers talked about the who had lost her arm and kept fighting. Stories grew in the telling. Some said she had killed 100 enemies with her bare hands. Some said she could not be hurt at all. Some said she was not really alive, that she was some kind of machine built for war. Heard the stories, she ignored them. What she could not ignore was the summons from high command. The war room felt different when she entered. The same 19 commanders sat in the same 19 chairs. The same screens displayed the same tactical information, but something had changed. They were looking at her differently now. Before, they had looked at her with fear, with suspicion, with the cautious wariness of prey animals watching a predator. Now there was something else in their eyes, something that might have been respect. Or it might have been something deeper. Admiral gestured to a chair in the center of the room. "Sit down, Lieutenant." Sat, she noticed that no one had corrected him. She was still a lieutenant, technically, but everyone in the room was treating her like something more. The representative spoke first. His voice was cold and precise, like a computer calculating equations. "We have reviewed the mission recordings from 4. We have analyzed your performance. We have questions." "I will answer them," said. "You acted outside your operational parameters. You were ordered to lead the team, not to engage the enemy directly." "The enemy engaged us first," I responded. "You sustained serious injuries. Your arm was burned nearly to the bone." "My arm is healing. The mission succeeded." Leaned forward. His eyes were like black glass reflecting no light. "Lieutenant, we have studied your species extensively since first contact. We have read the reports from we have analyzed your evolutionary history, your predatory instincts, your remarkable capacity for violence." Waited, she could feel the tension in the room, thick like smoke. "What we do not understand," continued, "is why you fight for us." The question hung in the air. Around the room, commanders leaned forward in their chairs. This was the question that had haunted them since the first human ship had appeared in Coalition space. This was the question that kept them awake at night. Humans were terrifying. Humans were weapons, but weapons could be pointed in any direction. Why were they pointed at the hegemony? Why not at the Coalition? Why not at everyone? Was quiet for a long moment. She thought about how to answer. She thought about what these alien beings needed to hear. Then she decided to tell them the truth. "On Earth," she said, "we have a saying, 'The enemy of my enemy is my friend.'" She paused. "It is not always true. Sometimes the enemy of your enemy is just another enemy waiting for their turn. Humans have learned this lesson many times." She looked around the room, meeting each commander's eyes in turn. "But we have another saying too. Those who stand together stand. Those who stand alone fall." Admiral shifted in his chair. His scales had turned a pale yellow, a color that had learned meant intense concentration. "And which saying applies to us, Lieutenant?" "Both," said, "and neither. Let me explain." She stood up. No one had given her permission. No one objected. "The hegemony wants to burn everything," she said. "Every world, every species, every trace of life that does not serve their purpose. They do not want to conquer. They do not want to rule. They want to erase. They want a galaxy of silence and ash." She walked slowly around the room as she spoke. The commanders watched her move with the same hypnotized attention that a small animal might give to a large predator. "My species," continued, "has spent its entire existence learning how to survive things that want to erase us. Ice ages that covered our world, diseases that killed millions, predators that hunted us in the darkness, other humans who wanted our resources, our territory, our lives. She stopped walking and faced the commanders. We have gotten very, very good at not being erased. The general spoke up. His voice was rough, like rocks grinding together. That explains why you survive. It does not explain why you fight for others. Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen terrible things and learned to live with them. General, she said, let me tell you something about nothing survives alone. The predators hunt in packs. The prey animals protect each other. Even the plants work together, sharing resources through their roots, warning each other about danger. She paused. Humans learned this lesson very early. We learned that the tribe survives when individuals protect the tribe. We learned that love is stronger than fear. We learned that the pack that stays together is the pack that lives. She walked back to the center of the room. The coalition is our pack now, she said. When Earth was discovered, your people could have treated us as enemies. You could have quarantined us. You could have destroyed us before we became a threat. Instead, you offered us membership. You offered us friendship. You treated us as equals. Her voice hardened. The hegemony would have killed us. The hegemony would have burned our world and scattered our ashes across the void. But the coalition gave us a chance. And humans, General, we never forget when someone gives us a chance. Silence filled the room. The commanders looked at each other, then back at. Admiral spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. You fight for us because we showed you kindness. We fight for you because you showed us that the galaxy does not have to be cruel, said. Because you proved that different species can work together, can trust each other, can build something better than any of them could build alone. Her eyes burned with intensity. That is worth fighting for. That is worth dying for. That is what humans believe. She stood straight, her shoulders back, her chin lifted. The hegemony thinks they understand predators, she said. They think they are the apex of evolution. They think nothing in the galaxy can match their hunger for destruction. Her voice dropped to something that was almost a whisper. They are wrong. They have never seen what grows in the dark places, under the crushing weight in the killing cold. They have never seen us. The room was completely silent. Even the machines seemed to be holding their breath. Then Admiral stood up. His scales had turned a deep blue, a color that had never seen before. Later, she would learn that it meant profound emotion. Pride, perhaps, or hope. Lieutenant, he said, effective immediately, you are promoted to commander. You will have full authority to plan and execute special operations against the hegemony. Blinked, sir. You asked why we showed your species kindness, said. The answer is simple. We recognize something in you, something we had lost in ourselves, something we desperately needed. He walked around the table and stood in front of her. We saw fire. We saw determination. We saw the will to fight when fighting seemed impossible. He placed his hand on her shoulder. His scales were warm against her uniform. You asked why we gave you a chance, Commander. It is because we knew, from the moment we saw your species, that you were exactly what the galaxy needed. Stood still for a moment, then she nodded once sharply. Then let us give the hegemony what they deserve, she said. The War Council began planning in earnest. This time, no one interrupted the human when she spoke. They had learned better. 6 months later, the war had changed. The hegemony had been advancing for 50 years. System by system, world by world, they had pushed the coalition back. They had burned colonies. They had destroyed fleets. They had left nothing but silence in their wake. Now, for the first time in half a century, they were retreating. The change did not come from the coalition's superior numbers. The hegemony had always outnumbered them. It did not come from better technology. The hegemony had always had the advantage there as well. The change came from the humans. There were only 300 of them in the entire coalition military. A handful of specialists, advisors, and tactical officers scattered across 1,000 ships. They were a tiny fraction of the total force. They should not have mattered. They mattered. Stories spread through the hegemony ranks like a disease. Stories of things that should not be possible. Stories of creatures that refused to die. A human infiltrator had destroyed a dreadnought. She had crawled through the ventilation system for 16 hours, surviving temperatures that would have frozen any other species solid. She had planted charges in the reactor core. She had escaped as the ship exploded behind her. A human pilot had rammed her fighter into a hegemony command vessel. The impact should have killed her instantly. Instead, she had pulled herself from the wreckage, walked through the broken corridors of the dying ship, and accepted the captain's surrender in person. A human marine squad had held a planetary against an army, 72 hours without sleep, 72 hours without resupply, 72 hours without any hope of reinforcement. At the end, when coalition forces finally arrived, they found the humans still standing, wounded, exhausted, surrounded by the bodies of their enemies, but standing. The hegemony began to call them Eth. In their language, it meant the unkillable ones. Commanders who faced humans in battle developed new tactics: retreat immediately, regroup at maximum range, request reinforcements, never, ever engage in close combat. It did not always work. Stood on the bridge of the infinite doctrine and watched the hegemony fleet burn. She was a commander now, full commander, with authority over a special operations division that answered only to high command. The promotion had come quickly, faster than any officer in coalition history. Some species resented her for it. Most were simply grateful that she was on their side. Admiral stood beside her. Over the past 6 months, he had grown accustomed to her presence. He had even grown fond of her in his own way. She was strange and terrifying and completely incomprehensible. But she was also loyal and brave and absolutely dedicated to protecting the people she served with. "The war is turning," he said, watching the enemy ships flee. "It is. Because of your people." Shook her head. "Because of all our people, Admiral, the Silurians who design our strategies, the who hold our lines, the who keep our ships running, every species that fights together." She turned to face him. "Humans are not special because we are strong. We are special because we remind everyone else that they can be strong too." Considered this. His scales shifted through colors that could not read. "You believe that we were always capable of winning this war." "I believe you were always capable of fighting it," said. "The coalition has always had the numbers, the technology, the resources. What you lacked was belief. You had been losing for so long that you forgot what winning felt like." She gestured at the burning fleet on the. "Humans remember what winning feels like. We have won against ice ages and plagues and predators and each other. We have won against everything the universe has thrown at us. Winning is in our blood, and now it is in the coalition's blood too." A message came through the communications system. A Silurian officer read it out loud. "Commander, the enemy flagship has lost engine power. They are requesting terms of surrender." Felt a fierce joy rise in her chest. She controlled it, kept her face calm, but she knew that could see her scales, so to speak, could read her emotions in the tension of her body. "Tell them we accept their surrender," she said. "All weapons offline, all crew in visible locations. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force." The officer relayed the message. A few moments later, confirmation came back. The hegemony flagship was surrendering. Turn 2. "You are not going to demand their destruction." "Destruction is what the hegemony does," said. "The coalition does something different. The coalition offers choices. The hegemony soldiers on that ship can die, or they can surrender and face justice, or they can choose a new path. That is what victory looks like for us." "Mercy," said. The word sounded strange in his mouth, as if he was not used to saying it. "Yes," agreed. "Mercy. That is another thing humans learned on our. You cannot build anything lasting on fear alone. You cannot hold territory just by killing everyone in it. Eventually, you have to stop fighting and start building. And building requires trust. Trust requires mercy. She looked back at the hegemony ships had stopped moving. Their weapons were powering down. All across the sector, the battle was ending. This is not the end of the war, said. The hegemony is too large, too powerful, too committed to their path. There will be more battles, more deaths, more sacrifices. But we will win, said. It was not a question. Yes, said. We will win, because we are not just fighting against something. We are fighting for something, for the coalition, for the future, for the chance to build something better than what came before. She turned away from and looked at the bridge crew, Silurians and a dozen other species, all of them working together, all of them trusting each other with their lives. 6 months ago, they had watched her with fear. Now they watched her with something different, respect, perhaps, or admiration, or the simple, quiet confidence that came from fighting beside someone you trusted. Keep scanning for survivors, ordered, and get me a status report on our casualties. We are not done yet. The crew responded with quick efficiency. They had learned to follow her orders without question, not because she demanded obedience, but because she had earned their loyalty. Watched her work. After a moment he spoke quietly, so only she could hear. Commander, when this war is over, what will you do? Paused. She thought about Earth, about the mountains where she grew up, about the family she had left behind. She thought about the stars outside, the millions of worlds waiting to be explored. I will help rebuild, she said finally. The galaxy has been at war for too long. When the fighting is done, someone will need to help put the pieces back together. Someone will need to remind people that there is more to life than survival. That does not sound like something I would say. Smiled. Surviving is just the beginning, Admiral. After you survive, you have to figure out how to live. That is the hard part. That is the part worth doing. She turned back to the stars stretched out before her, infinite and beautiful. But first, she said, we have a war to win. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in quiet harmony. The human had taught them many things in the past 6 months. She had taught them tactics and strategies and the value of taking risks. But more than that, she had taught them something simple and profound. She had taught them that they could win. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy through fear for centuries. They had believed that fear was the only power that mattered. They had believed that terror was the ultimate weapon. They were wrong. The ultimate weapon was hope, and the girl had brought it with her when she walked through that door 6 months ago and told the commanders to stop interrupting. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere deep in hegemony space, commanders gathered in war rooms of their own. They looked at maps showing their retreating forces. They read reports about the unkillable ones. They asked each other the same question, over and over. What are humans? Where did they come from? How do we stop them? They never found the answer. Because the answer was simple and terrifying and impossible to defeat. Humans came from a world that tried to kill them every single day, and they had won. Now they were coming for the hegemony. And they would win again.